Hi everyone, this video is going to be about the product identities for trigonometry, and we'll be referring back to our angle, sum and difference rules that we proved in a previous video. So I've just listed them here labelled 1, 2, 3 and 4. Now let's take a look first, say, at equation 1 and equation 2. I notice that this second term, cos A sin B, is positive in the first and negative in the second. This suggests I could add equation 1 to equation 2 to eliminate this term. And then I'll just be left with a product between sine of A and cosine of B. So let's do that first. Let's take equation 1 and add equation 2. On the left-hand side, I would have sine of A plus B added to the sine of A minus B. On the right hand side, I'd have this first term, sine A cos B, added to itself, that's 2 sine A cosine B. And I notice that the second term, cosine A sine of B, is equal but opposite, so they would disappear. Dividing through by 2, and I'll write this with sine of A by the cosine of B on the left. So divide by 2, or alternately multiply by 1/2. I have the sine of A plus B added to the sine of A minus B. That's my first product identity. So it's the product sine of an angle A by the cosine of a different angle B. Now let's try doing the same thing with equation 3 and 4. What if we added equation 3 and 4? I notice that the second term here, sine A sine B, are equal and opposite. So that suggests that we could go equation 3. Equation 3 added to equation 4. Now on the left hand side I would have cosine A plus B added to cosine A minus B. The first term, cosine A cosine B, is the same on both, so it's 2 cosine A cosine B. The second term are equal but opposite signs, so they will add to give 0. And this gives me my rule for the cosine of A by the cosine of a different angle B. So multiply by 1/2, and then it's cosine of A plus B added to cosine of A minus B. There's my second product identity. This time it's the product of the cosine of two different angles. Last time it was a sine multiplied by a cosine of two different angles. So that's it for the ones which are equal and opposite. But now let's take a look at eliminating the first term. If I wanted to eliminate the first time, I would need to use subtraction. And I think it would be best if I went 1 subtract 2, so that that first term, sine A cosine B, disappeared. Let's try that. Equation 1 subtract equation 2. Might be an idea if I just copied those. Let's see, can I copy those remotely? I hope. And let's go down here and see if I can paste them down. Oh, isn't that lovely? Oh, well, I somehow managed to. Oh, close enough. Let's keep going down from here then. So we were going to go equation 1 and we were going to subtract. So sine of A plus B, subtract the sine of A minus B. Now this time the first term, sine A cos B, would subtract to leave nothing. And here, cosine of A, sine of B, subtract a negative is the same as add. I would have 2 cosine A sine B. And so making the product cosine A sine B the subject of the formula, it's the sine of A plus B, subtract the sine of A minus B. There's my third formula for a product. Now you will note, let's see, the first one was the sine of an angle by the cosine of a different angle. Well, this is also this sine of an angle by the cosine of a different angle. The first and the third formula here are more or less equivalent. If you were to just swap the symbols around, you would produce those and do a little bit of thinking about signs of positive and negative angles, but it's usually written down as a separate rule just for convenience. Now the final one we want to do then would be, if we went equation 4 and we subtracted equation 3, we'll get sine of A times the sine of B doubled, and that first term will disappear. So it's 4 take 3. And that's cosine of A minus B take the cosine of A plus B. Now the first term will subtract to leave nothing. The second term will be subtracting a negative is add. That's 2 sine of A sine of B. And if we make the product sine A sine B the subject of the formula, it's cosine of A minus B subtract cosine of A plus B. And that's our fourth equation for the product of two trigonometric ratios. So we have sine A by the sine of a different angle, we have cosine multiplied by sine for different angles, and we have cosine multiplied by cosine for different angles. And remember, the first one and the third one are more or less the same, just with the symbols in different places, and so we get equivalent, slightly different looking, but equivalent versions of the same rule. That's your product identities review.